Tuesday's Just Baseball show is on September 3rd. It's always brought to you by BetMGM. We've got a couple of guys that we got to talk about. One really, really notable September call up, Rhett Lowder, who is a consensus top 100 prospect in baseball. And I know on Just Baseball's top 100 got up. Also, want to ask you a Yusei Kikuchi question because we talked about it a little bit in the weekend roundup. Before we get any farther, Peter said that I'm outing him right now, he loves the analysis that you bring to the weekend roundup, but he said that I lean more into the roundup with the finger twirl and all of that. How do you feel about that? Because I know
I,
you don't do the mailbag thing, the harmonize. The roundup's an easy lean.
I thought I did it. It's just, you know, I feel like he's just going to label me that now, no matter what. So
Right.
Arm's the no fun guy.
Arms the
I,
curmudgeon. Yeah.
and I get it. I get it. I can be that way. I'll try to lean into it more next time. I'll get up and spin around and jump out of my chair.
It's crazy that he talked about you behind your back.
It's pretty messed up. He totally behind my back. How would I ever know that he said that?
listen to the show. Listen to the first 2 minutes of the show. That's probably the way you can find out. We got some other recalls that we want to talk about as September call-ups. It's kind of like a belated September call-up episode. Note on the injury side as well. But again, it's all brought to us by BetMGM. Your boy, our boy, just baseball's boy, Griffin Conine, went foul pole hunting in
Ooh.
San Francisco. And he got a bunch of yellow on that baseball, which is sick that he got the baseball back. There's some backstory to that, though.
Yeah, cool fan. I don't think the fan knew who he was, and so I think he Googled, you know, the name right when he caught the home run ball and realized that it was his first. It kicked off of the foul pole, and then quickly, Craig Minervini, the Marlins, sideline guy, has been doing it for since I was going to the game 6, 7 years old.
Yeah.
Friend of Jeff's, so he obviously ran over there, did an interview with him real quick, and was like, "What's it gonna take?" And it's like, "Oh, I looked him up. I didn't realize it's Jeff Conine's son. Like a signed ball from both of them would be great." I think they ended up giving him a bat too.
Cool.
But the really interesting layer into this is McCovey Cove Dave is a guy that I remember seeing a story on earlier in the season, maybe not even that long ago, maybe like a month ago, a few weeks ago, whenever that Mike Harris Grand Slam was.
Yeah, it was probably 3 weeks ago when Mike Harris came back.
So I didn't realize that we have like a boater version of Zach Hampel, I think, on our hands, starting to blossom here in McCovey Cove. So McCovey Cove Dave sits there in I guess in a canoe or whatever, a kayak,
Yeah.
and just waits for balls to land. He's very aware of, I think the importance of each home run and certain games and things like that. Totally cool. Makes sense. I think he's a very, very strict negotiator and expects some pretty steep returns. And I didn't realize this until I did some digging into his Mike Harris situation, where he reportedly asked for a job with the Giants for Mike Harris's first Grand Slam ball to be given to Mike Harris. Not a signed bat from one of the more exciting young players in the game, or, a handful of things, whatever it may be. It seems like Mike Harris would have been down for anything. Apparently, McCovey Cove Dave fully wanted a job with the Giants, which is totally out of the realm of possibility for Mike Harris to be able to do anything with.
That is as aggressively unemployed a remark and a request as I've ever heard.
Yes. Again, maybe a job interview, whatever. It's out of his control. And I just think that's more of like I'm never going to do it. David O'Brien, by the way, was who reported on that. So pretty good source from the Athletic, the Braves Athletic, writer saying, hey, this is what they asked for. I think he has a thing with number 56. Supposedly that's what he said. That's a number that Griff wears because that's what was assigned to him early in the season. Big league spring training.
Yeah.
He was negotiating with Griff before Griff even hit the home run. So before the series started, he, I guess, looks at who's going to have their potential to have their first home run or their 100th or 200, whatever it may be. And I think he's waiting for the opportunity to negotiate, right? He was negotiating with Griff before he hit the thing. So when that ball hit the foul pole, I was like, thank goodness. Because McCovey Cove Dave was going to want an arm and a leg from probably the Conine family. Yeah. Instead, it hits the foul pole. A nice, kind soul who knows the importance of the ball beyond him, because it really is not that important. And not that anybody's obliged to do it, but there's a certain level of
no doubt.
Okay, dude, this is Mike Harris. It's not Mike Harris's record-breaking home run. And then also, do you want like a first? I get if it's a record breaker that you can be kind of tough on it because that's a very specific thing. But a guy's first home run, like that's matters more to the guy than you. Or first grand slam, especially like that's not going for anything special on the
No.
after like secondary market. Like that's just special to Mike Harris. And a 27-year-old rookie's first career home run, like you're gonna like be hard in negotiations there too. I'm happy that it hit the foul pole, and I just wanted to bring up McCovey Cove, Dave, because I don't think he's gotten a lot of coverage outside of like I know Braves fans do not like him after that Mike Harris situation. But I'm watching you, Dave. I'm watching you, and I'm cool with even a relatively steep asking price. You obviously sit out there a long time, but intentions are important, and I think people question Hampel's intentions, and finding myself start to question Mr. Dave's intentions out there in the kayak.
His last name is Edlund, and you sent me on a deep dive into an article from the San Francisco Standard. And there are some quotes from Dave Edlund that are going to make you dislike him more or like him less.
Thank goodness.
To be a good ball hog in McCovey Cove, you need a certain set of skills. You need to be a fast kayaker. You need to be able to determine where that ball is going to land. You also have to be a good radio listener. Not everybody has the patience to really be ready for every player, and the top ball hawks that I compete against are ready for every player. Overall, there have been 200 McCovey Cove home runs over 23 seasons. Of the 200, I have 47. This is the best one. Barry Bonds hit 38 total home runs in McCovey Cove, so I have more total balls than Barry Bonds. I've also played more games. Barry played about 495 games at the park, and I have 630. He's
All
a
right, well,
lot
that just hammered my home. You just nailed it. That hammered home my point beautifully. It's not about you, Dave.
Oh, it is. He's actually more decorated in Giants lore than Barry Bonds is because he sits out there in a kayak and listens to the radio.
No PEDs either.
I love when people are like, I'm a lot like the players. That's my
Yeah.
favorite thing in the
I've
world.
played more games. Sitting on your ass in a kayak, listening to the radio, I don't think is necessarily the same thing as what Barry Bonds was doing on a day. Maybe some days when Bonds doesn't get pitched to and walk 4 times, but
that's the thing. This is a direct quote. I've played more games.
Played more games.
Bonds. This is unbelievable reading this.
Outright. Okay, you made me feel so much better. Yeah, and if you're like preemptively like negotiating with play, like immediately your intentions are going to be questioned by me. Like if you are negotiating before players even get to town, saying, "Hey, I'm probably going to get this. Is what I want." Fuck off. Like right. That's pretty much it for me. So we're watching you. The aquatic Zach Hampel. We are watching you.
The aquatic Zach Hampel. I love that nickname. Let's jump to a guy in Houston right now, the American League West, that has been obviously a lot better, but has been lighting it up in terms of the strikeouts. And that's Yusei Kikuchi with the Houston Astros. Understandably so. You clown Dana Brown at the deadline. You say like, dude, that is such a drastic overpay. And it is. It still totally is. Will Wagner is a big leaguer for the Blue Jays. Joey Loperfido is a big leaguer and has the chance to be a good big leaguer for the Blue Jays. Jake Bloss has the chance to be a good starter for the Toronto Blue Jays. But Yusei Kikuchi, in 22 starts with Toronto, had a 4.75 ERA and was punching out 10 hitters per nine. In 6 starts with the Astros, Kikuchi is 3-0 with a 2.57 ERA. And in 35 innings, he's K'd 47 and walked 10. That's 12 strikeouts per nine. The whiff numbers are leveling up for Yusei Kikuchi. And my question to you essentially is why are the whiff numbers leveling up? Was it an arsenal change that the Astros made? Was it, I feel like it's impossible to optimize shape with a 33-year-old guy on a rental. You're not going to change the fabric of a pitch that he throws. Is it a usage thing or is it a, hey, he's in a new environment and he's leveling up his game thing?
It's a usage location thing. And I think it's, Kikuchi, we've seen flashes, and that's why he's been a very difficult player to properly value and assess, I think, because you see stretches where it's like, wow, this guy could be, one of the better swing and miss lefties in baseball. And then you see other stretches where it's like, geez, he's getting racked.
That's the thing, man. Like you see those flashes where it's like, how is this guy not an all-star all the time? And he's got a career 4.62 ERA.
Yeah. So like now you're seeing, I think, what the Astros were able to do here. And if the Astros win the World Series, then fully we all owe a major apology to Dana Brown and the Astros, because to me that's undoes any price that you gave up for
Yeah.
a player, right? Like the Marlins, I always go back to them winning the World Series in 03. They gave up their number one overall pick shortly after drafting him, Adrian Gonzalez, for Ugueth Urbina. And you know, obviously Urbina, closer, helped you win the World Series, now is in prison for attempted murder. But
Yeah.
beyond that, it worked. You won the World Series. You can't question trading Adrian Gonzalez. So like it can be the same thing here, but it shifted way more importance to this season. But getting back to kind of the main point here and the main question is, he's throwing that slider a little bit harder, and also keeping it, I think, down and away from guys a little bit more. Like I think he kind of sprayed it before, and not for any reason. I just don't know if he really was locked in on a specific location where it performs best. And now I think the Astros were able to immediately, I think that's why they were willing to give up so much for him too, with the way that they're able to develop pitching. I think for them, they said, hey, we can immediately make a difference with this guy and turn him into a player that if they traded for this Kikuchi, right? That package, even for a rental, would make more sense. A guy that's throwing the way that he's thrown with the Astros. So I guess maybe that was how they justified it. They felt like they could get him to this point. But I really do think it's the way that he's setting up the fastball and this harder slider off of each other. It's really the same pitch, just other than throwing it a little bit harder, but locating that fastball up more consistently and not being afraid to miss at the top of the zone and miss above the zone. And then kind of conversely, with the harder cutter slider, it's really a slider, but again, even gets mistagged as a cutter because he's throwing it harder now. Like putting that down and really like not being afraid to backdoor it, not being afraid to bury it. Like I think there was a level of just trying to throw more strikes that maybe was put on him in Toronto. And he had some stretches in the past where the location wasn't great. And I think he's just not afraid to miss as much now. And I think it's almost allowed him to throw more strikes because he's getting way more chase and more whiff as well. So I think he's found this balance now of throwing enough strikes, but also, not being afraid to pitch outside the zone and allow guys to expand and get themselves out, because he has great stuff. So I think that's the thing, is really leaning into being able to get more chase. And I don't think it's a coincidence that since he's joined the Astros, aside from the location adjustments where the fastball is located at the top more and the slider he's been willing to bury more, he's getting like 5-6% more chase as well, which doesn't sound like a ton, but that's a lot when you're going from about 25-26% to 31-32%. That's pretty significant, and can really alter the trajectory of starts. And with his changeup and slider being so inconsistent, I think phasing those out a little bit more, he's just been throwing the slider more, period, I think has been a big help.
No, dude. I mean, like, he has presented a fascinating dilemma for the Houston Astros, I think, and we're going to see a bridge. And I like the point that you make where you point out that the upped chase rate is noticeable now, and you say, it could be perceived as marginal. We're working with like pretty large samples here. We're working with a 6-start sample in Houston, and we're working with 120 innings in Toronto. The dilemma here with Houston is I'm looking at 6 starting pitchers that are kind of sort of throwing their ass off right now. And the only guy that isn't is a future first ballot Hall of Famer. Framber Valdez, Yusei Kikuchi, Ronel Blanco, Spencer Arrighetti, Hunter Brown, Justin Verlander. Which 2 are you trimming from the postseason rotation?
Oh,
Arrighetti, I think.
Arrighetti's been awesome.
He's been awesome, but like Brown's been better. The locks in this postseason rotation are Framber and Hunter Brown.
Like Arrighetti has been pretty darn good, man. Like 12 Ks, 13 Ks, and then his bad outing was 5 2/3 of 4 runs, 5 Ks, then 6 shutty with 6 Ks at the Orioles, and then 7 2/3 shutout, 11 Ks at Philadelphia.
Yeah.
Like, I know you feel like you can't because it's Verlander, but like, does Verlander end up kind of grabbing a long relief type of role? Is that crazy? Am I like,
it is crazy, which sucks because you have so many guys that are performing much better than Justin Verlander, and Verlander has been unavailable. I get it. Verlander has also been a little bit finicky in his postseason career. I think the best way to go about this is you go Framber and Hunter Brown, no holds barred. I think Kikuchi sets up as the 3 now
He
because
has to. I mean, Kikuchi needs to be thrown in the postseason, especially with how
Kikuchi.
much you gave up for him and the way he's throwing.
Dude, it's so hard for me to say that Ronel Blanco should be going to a long relief role, but I think that Ronel Blanco can thrive in that swingman role, and you have a designed piggyback of Verlander and Arrighetti in Game 4.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, if Arrighetti's comfortable in that piggyback role or vice versa, I guess you could do that. Blanco makes sense to go to the pen because he's been a little bit better, but like he has kind of faded a bit. I mean, he's blowing past any innings total we've really seen from
Right.
him. Obviously as a breakout at 30, 31. So yeah, that probably makes the most sense. I never really thought about it. That's a fascinating challenge, assuming they get to the postseason to have to iron out there.
It's also just so funny because we were talking about them having no pitching at the front half of this year, right? We're talking about, oh shit, we're running out JP France again. We're running out Arrighetti. Arrighetti sucks. Now Arrighetti's awesome. Hunter Brown sucks. Now Hunter Brown's awesome. That this shit can switch so quickly, man. And now the Astros have this embarrassment of riches in the starting rotation.
Yeah, which is what makes them really scary.
Yeah.
The other thing with Kikuchi that I think is really kind of just fascinating in general is he was throwing this curveball more frequently, and I think that the Astros just kind of said like, "Hey, man, put that thing on ice." Like, yeah, he mixes it in. It's still a great taste breaking pitch, but instead of throwing it like 19% of the time, he's throwing it about 7%.
Mhm.
And like your slider is an elite pitch,
Yeah.
and your fastball tunnels elite, like at an elite level off of it. Lean into those two. You've got a good enough curveball and changeup to now mix those in and get people off of the 2-pitch rhythm. But like, hey, it's okay to be a 2-pitch pitcher when you're a lefty from a 5.5 release height, 5.4 release height, and have the characteristics that you have on your fastball. Like it is a plus heater from every metric. It gets well above average extension. It's well above average carry, and the slider, of course, is going to tunnel extremely well off of that. Lean into that further instead of making it kind of easier for hitters to differentiate the pitches between and pick up that curveball, which is easier to see out of the hand. So, he mixes in the curve and change enough to take, hitters off of the trail. But like that curveball was very over the top compared to his fastball and slider. And I just think it was easier for hitters to pick up. So really leaning into creating that difficult visual for hitters and really just leaning into his 2 best pitches and then locating them a bit better has been a huge difference. He's without a doubt got a spot in that postseason rotation. So yeah, I think Blanco goes to the pen. And then, I mean, I'm trying to think of the last time we've kind of seen like a team with 4 options there. They can kind of just ride the hot hand and get creative, but yeah, you also could just go off of a piggyback type of situation as well. Maybe Verlander and I know he probably wouldn't love to agree to it, but Verlander, when he knows he's only needed to go 3 or 4, maybe can empty the tank a little bit more, and that fastball can play a little bit better. I'm very interested to hear how that all shakes out, and I think it'll be one of the more interesting storylines going into the postseason.
I feel like he'd kind of be about it on this side of 40 now. You're on the
Mhm.
wrong side of 40. And if you know, you had Joe Espada go to Verlander pre postseason, right? Like September 20th. Hey man, dial it back a little bit, and I need you to go no holds barred for 4 innings. And then we've got Arrighetti for the next 3. I think he could lean into that. 38-year-old Justin Verlander might not, but this guy clearly likes Houston. This guy clearly wants to put the Houston Astros in the best situation to succeed in the postseason. And he's done that before at a better, version of himself at a
Mhm.
better time in his career. Now it's all right, I've been beat up. If I can go out there and give, full effort and I don't need to pace myself in the slightest, knowing that we have a really talented rookie on the heels of me and he's ready to go in the next clean inning that we've got, I think he could lean into that and be pretty receptive to it.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, it's a 24-year-old rookie, in Arrighetti that maybe falters a little bit on that stage. Does have a little bit of a long ball issue, like that could be something that creeps in, tends to in the playoffs. Like
Mhm.
those reasons, you think, yeah, you roll with the Verlander, and then you have a really good contingency plan, whether it's as a piggyback or Verlander cruises through 6 and he's Justin Verlander again. Great, and now you've either got a guy that can go if you're way up, let's say it's 3-0, you can grab that extra game there and you rest your main guys for another day, or you have someone that can, come in and keep you in the ball game when you go down in an early lead. And I think that's the interesting side of it too. So it's a great problem to have for a team, as you mentioned, like that we were literally saying, hey, do they have enough pitching to get through this year? Now they have too much in the playoffs, and that's going to be a fun thing for them to sort through and figure out. But it's a great problem, quote unquote, to have.
Yeah.
I think how Verlander does these next couple of weeks, though, as he comes back, will be important because
Right.
if he's really struggling, then you're going to have to just unfortunately make that tough decision with the Hall of Famer. I don't think that's going to happen. I think he's going to throw fine, and when he does that, he's going to earn himself. He already has earned himself that postseason start or 2 or 3. But if it really looks ugly in September, then you might have a tough conversation.
Yeah, and I don't think it's a quarterback situation. Like, the old quarterback adage where if you have 2, you have 0 in college football. Like, I think it's more of a receiver thing in terms of starting pitching. Like, in the bullpen, I could see that. If you don't have a shutdown guy or a shutdown 2, and if you have 6 guys that you're comfortable turning to in the 7th, but not in the 9th, then you might have no bullpen ace. But when it comes to a rotation, especially in the postseason, it's awesome to have a Wheeler and a Nola combo at the top where you have a clear cut 2 and then everybody else. Yeah, I think Ranger is everybody else when it comes to the postseason. But, with this, I feel like it's more wide receivers than quarterbacks because you've got so many weapons that you can turn to on any given night. And you don't necessarily need to say, oh, we've got Framber on the hill because Ronel Blanco can be freaking awesome.
Yeah.
So can Kikuchi and so can Hunter Brown. So
yeah, they got plenty of options, and I think Blanco in short spurts could be interesting too. So you're just being able to kind of use these guys in different roles, and maybe they try the piggyback thing a couple times, going later in the year, see if Arrighetti is comfortable coming out of the pen. But the thing is they got to go and finish strong here and hold on to their spot. So I'm excited. It's just one of those teams I'm most excited to just kind of see how they go about things and handle it. And wasn't on the rundown here, but just came in. Fernando Tatis Jr. set to be activated today.
good.
So that is good and fun and exciting for the Padres. Gonna be rusty. I mean, don't be surprised if there's some K's out of the gate. I imagine he's not gonna do much rehab or at all. I guess if he's getting activated, no rehab.
Yeah.
He hasn't been playing rehab games, right? I feel like we would have
No.
seen Tatis 5 for 5, 5 homers or whatever.
Exactly.
Whenever he
I
goes to
don't
the
think he's
PCL for
playing.
rehab.
Yeah.
That's huge because now he has a full month here
Yeah.
to really shake off the rust. And who cares what happens? Like if he goes 2 for 35, I don't care. Just
Right.
get yourself into rhythm for the postseason. I think that's really exciting.
So I was just having this conversation about Austin Riley and Ozzie Albies last week, where they're due back, I think, at about the end of September, like final week and a half of the MLB regular season. Okay, that's great. You get them back for the postseason, but they have a week to get their feet under them.
Yeah.
You give Tatis a month. I think this is a better use of his time than going on rehab. And I think he's comfortable enough with who he is at the major league level not to need to dominate rehab for 5 months and then come back and feel like you have your feet under yourself. If he goes 0 for 24, like you're saying, dude, if he just sucks for the next week, that's fine because that's a week of big league pitching that he just saw. In spring training, we watched Miguel Vargas literally not swing for a week.
Yeah, just track.
Yeah, it's different. And obviously the Padres are in a postseason push and you don't want a lost spot in your batting order. But I don't think I could ever call Fernando Tatis, even if he went in cold after missing 2 years, a lost spot.
No chance. Especially with the way that he was clicking before the injury, which makes it so much more tough. Like he was looking like Tatis again, where he had the last 25 games, 108 plate appearances before going down with the injury. He was slashing 354, 407, 596. It's 1,003 OPS with a 17.5% strikeout rate. He had 6 home runs in that span. So he was clicking on all cylinders. It seemed like he had really figured things out. So hopefully that rolls over once he shakes the rust off of whatever kind of clicked for him offensively, and he keeps going from there. But I mean, this is a shot for the Padres, who didn't even really need one with the way that they've been playing lately and what they've been getting from Jackson Merrill and Jurickson Profar, and now Joe Musgrove looking healthy and throwing well. I mean, Darvish coming back. This is a team that was performing extremely well, and now they just got their superstar back. And I mean that whole side of it makes them easily. I mean, we're talking about 2 teams that I think are trending in a really strong direction as we go into the final month here.
No doubt. We're talking about a team now that is on a skid because they ran into Houston, because they ran into the gauntlet that is the Houston Astros and that assortment of starting pitchers with Framber shoving and with Hunter Brown shoving. Kansas City got swept. And of course, they're dealing with the injuries of Vinny Pasquantino and Hunter Renfroe. Vinny hit the shelf a couple days ago with a fractured thumb, and Renfroe is on the shelf with a hamstring strain. So what do? They find external remedies. Tommy Pham was DFA'd, so they go and acquire Tommy Pham. Robbie Grossman, I think, was on waivers, so they go and acquire Robbie Grossman. Yuli Gurriel was acquired from Atlanta for cash considerations. He was 40 years old, toiling in Gwinnett. And by toiling, I essentially mean thriving, because this guy was hitting the shit out of the ball with Gwinnett before they went and grabbed him. All I'm saying about like the external additions is I wish more teams did this when available and necessary. And it was necessary for Kansas City, and it was available here. We saw the waiver thing with the Angels last year. We're seeing the waiver thing this year, dude. There were a lot of guys that were placed on waivers that are still hanging out and playing right now. The fact that they went and capitalized, knowing that they're without Vinny for 6 to 8 weeks, and you could be without Hunter Renfroe for the better part of a month, going to grab Robbie Grossman on waivers, forming that platoon in a corner with Tommy Pham, who was a waiver acquisition, and then going to buy time at first with Yuli Gurriel. And I've got these AAA stats in front of me, dude. Like in Gwinnett, he was hitting 290 with an 863 OPS in 75 games. I know he's 40, but he had 12 homers in 75 games. He was solid in AAA.
And he's fresh, right? Like I think we saw the last couple of years, even going into the postseason, I think with the Astros, he started to just kind of fizzle late at the year, being older and just I think playing so many games and all that. Like he hasn't played that many games, and he's clearly in rhythm. I mean, what he's done in AAA is extremely impressive. Not swinging and missing really at all. If he can just hold it down and be a league average hitter at first base for them, I think you're feeling pretty good overall. The offense is not good in terms of when you look at the talent now without Vinny Pasquantino. Like, yes, it can get hot and it can go, but it is very Bobby Witt Jr. dependent. We've talked about that. But the fact that you can go to a Yuli Gurriel, who, at the very least is going to pulverize lefties, and then instead of going to a Nick Prado, who one time was a great prospect, now is an 89 WRC plus guy in AAA, like I have a lot more confidence in a veteran and like Yuli Gurriel, and also just a guy that's been there, done that in the postseason. So that side of it's great too. I mean, the trade for Paul DeJong can't go overlooked either. Right, this is a team that has one of the weaker farm systems. They were never going to be able to go out and really compete. I know they were in on Tanner Scott, they were in on some of these other players that were available on the market, and they couldn't match a lot of these offers, and that was part of the issue. But they were able to kind of be resourceful and pick up players here and there. And I mean, in 23 games with the White Sox, Paul DeJong has a 144 WRC plus. Is it sustainable? Of course not. He's striking out 37% of the time, but the production is the production, and he's been productive with him. He's hit 6 home runs and he's played good defense. So adding him into the fold too, like they've pieced it together with these vets, but you know what? I think that might help keep them afloat.
We played this game yesterday. Are you looking at Paul DeJong's page right now? Stop looking at it. Did you see how many homers he's hit this year?
I saw 6 with the White Sox, or 6 with the
Royals.
24 total. So I saw it.
24 total homer. Like Paul DeJong has a 25 homer season essentially. Who would have thunk it? But I mean, you're right, dude. It's a 144 WRC plus. He's OPSing over 900 with Kansas City. That has been a jolt, man. And you just look for complementary pieces around a top 5 player in the game, around the second best player in the American League this year. Like it's awesome to see what Bobby Witt is doing. And you say that it is very Bobby Witt dependent. It's a very Bobby Witt dependent lineup. I love Bobby Witt. Like I'm fine if my lineup is Bobby Witt dependent. If it was MJ Melendez dependent and he was standing on his head, I feel different about that. If it was Dansby Swanson dependent in Chicago, I feel different about that. This guy's a transcendent talent, and he's not slumping like ever. He's kicking ass. So I feel good about the complementary pieces that they got. Do I think that they are a clear-cut World Series contender? No.
No.
I like that pitching. I think the pitching can help them, but I think they're in that next tier of World Series contender. I think they're in that next tier of ALCS contender after the people that I genuinely believe, after the teams that I genuinely believe can win it, because the starting pitching is good enough, because they went and grabbed an Urseg, and because they have Bobby Witt Jr. And if you
Yeah.
have a semi-productive 7 hitter, feel good about that. They didn't until they went and grabbed 3 waiver, claims.
Yeah, I'd love to see if they could find a way to get, Fermin in the lineup a little bit more consistently, because he has swung it quite well when he's
A
on the field.
really good baseball name too. Freddie Fermin, alliteration.
It
It's
is a great baseball name.
yeah.
I think there's just more pressure on the Michael Masseys of the world to step up, but talk about a guy that's been there, done that as well, Tommy Pham, and
Yeah.
being able to add him to the fold as well. Like that's the other side is they're also compensating for, I think some of the gaps in the lineup and youth with experience too. So if these guys aren't going to be lighting it up, at least you have that experience side of it as well. So I know Pham was a guy that Royals fans were kind of hoping to sign late in free agency anyways. And I think some were like, oh, I would have rather had him than Renfroe. Well, here you go. So let's see how Pham does here. And when he gets hot down the stretch can help them perform. And it's definitely going to help them against left-handed pitching, which now between Gurriel and Pham, that could be a nice sneaky strength there against lefties.
No doubt. All right, we're going to get to a couple of notable September call-up transactions. Before that, quick break. The biggest September call-up of the cycle. Duke Ellis is a New York. Duke Ellis
Yes.
is a Yankee. Let me say that again. Duke Ellis is a Yankee. Jasson Dominguez is a Scranton Wilkes-Barre Rail Rider. Still, there was an uproar, to say the least, about Jasson Dominguez not being on the Yankee roster when rosters expanded to 28 players instead of 26 with the September call-ups. Jasson Dominguez has played 37 games with AAA Scranton, and he has been interrupted several times
Mm-hmm.
with a variety of injuries. Is it weird that he came up for that Little League Classic in Williamsport and
Yeah.
then went right back down and he's not a September call-up? Yeah, it's weird. Do I think this is a terrible decision not having Jasson Dominguez on the roster? I don't think it's a terrible decision.
I don't either. Look, I'm always going to be pro, like call them up, bring them up, get these guys up. I don't think people have fully like dove into, at least the people that are, out here freaking out saying, oh, he only has to be better than Verdugo. I get that. And he could get up there and be better than Verdugo. But this is also a dude that I think they're a little bit worried about just his body at this point in terms of just this season, right? Like the offseason is going to be nice for him, get right, focus on the muscles that he needs to focus on. Right. Like he had a late start to the year because of the elbow, right? And the Tommy John surgery. Looked great coming in. And then the oblique wasn't ready. And he, blew out that oblique. And since he's returned, his exit velocities have been down. He's been chasing more, which to me feels like maybe he doesn't feel as quick and he's a little bit more eager to get the barrel out there. And yes, he's put up good numbers overall because, talented hitters are and Jasson Dominguez is a top 15 prospect in baseball for us. Like those guys are going to put up numbers in AAA when they've seen the level before. And, if you look at his last 19 games, yeah, he's got an 868 OPS. But if you look at a lot of the underlying stuff, like he's chasing more than ever relative to what we've seen from him in the upper levels, which, again, you got to compare him to himself and just make sure he's ready. He's chasing more. He's whiffing a little bit more. And he's also just not hitting the ball nearly as hard. His EVs are down. If you look at his last 30 games, going back to like July 26th, he's got an OPS right around like 715. So there's been stretches of really good games, but you can just kind of small sample size theater, the statistics pretty easily. You can look at the last 10 games and say, oh, he's got an 877 OPS. And the thing for me is the right-handed swing has not been there since he's come back from the IL. And I think that's clearly been affected one way or another, depending on where that, oblique issue is. He has a 500 OPS from the right side. So you're going to bring up a switch hitter that you really don't want to put, against lefties at this point. That's unfortunate because a lot of your other guys are left-handed hitters. And then on top of that, I think you're putting him into a high impact, high effort, high adrenaline environment that just isn't good for a guy who's had several ailments this year and is down
every day. Yeah.
Yeah. Not play every day, kind of be in and out. And then it's going to be kind of like that weekend warrior syndrome. And I think also he's clearly isn't 100% back to Jasson Dominguez. I understand that 80% of Jasson Dominguez is better than what they're getting from Alex Verdugo, but 80% of Jasson Dominguez is more likely to potentially get hurt. And do you want to stunt this guy's development? Do you want to throw him to the wolves there? That's why we thought the promotion for that game was bizarre and he got his doors blown off in that one. Like I just think for his body and his mental, I'm sure he wants to be up there, but it would be throwing him into the fire. And even a couple weeks A couple more weeks to get his body right and a couple more weeks to just get some more consistency offensively could be enough. And then you bring him up. Sure, I'd like to see more big league runway, but for me, I've already seen enough to where I think where Jasson Dominguez is clicking on all cylinders and is 100% healthy and has enough at bats where he's in rhythm. I think he's ready to take on big league pitching. So
Yeah.
I don't really think it's as much of, oh, he needs to get his feet wet and get a full month in the big leagues. I think it's more important for a player with the talent of Jasson Dominguez to just get feeling like Jasson Dominguez again. And
No.
I think that's the most important thing.
Yeah, man. And like, I love the point that you make. A reminder that September 1 is not the final day to make transactions for your Major League Baseball team. That's just when rosters expand to 28. So just because you're not up on September 1 does not mean that you will not get up to the big leagues this year. Jasson Dominguez has the opportunity to get up to the Yankees on September 15th. The minor league baseball season runs through Sunday, September 21st or 22nd. It's one of those days. Like, he can get comfortable again in AAA over the course of 2.5 weeks. And I saw you text that. Like, that's totally not outside the realm of possibilities. And hey, he has a good week and a half, 2 weeks, and he looks comfortable. And he has a 3-hit day followed by a game with a homer, and he's putting good swings on everything. The right side looks great against a lefty starter. Then you can make the move to go get him for the home stretch. And it's going to be a tight stretch for the New York Yankees. I know it is. Like, every single league is tight right now. Every single division is tight right now, except for the National League Central. But dude, like, he's going to help them at some point in September, I would assume. If not, not the end of the world, because you have Jasson Dominguez for the foreseeable future that is going to be in the outfield on opening day next year at worst.
Yes. And he's already on the 40 man. So he's eligible to be on the postseason roster.
Yeah.
Like, he had to be on the 40 man or on the 60-day IL as of like 11:59 on August 31st
Yeah,
to
he's
be
fine.
eligible for the postseason. It's already there. So yeah, I don't know why everybody was so dead set on it having to be like right then and there. Like, it has to be when rosters expand. If the whole point is that you think you can be better than Verdugo, he's probably going to be replacing his at bats. So they'll make that happen when they think he's ready. So I think, again, I'm almost always going to be pro get this guy in there. He's ready to go. But when it comes to kind of health and things like that, and a guy that, like, if you watch the ABs, again, I understand he's catching some pitches down the middle and driving them, and he's had a few multi-hit games and things like that. But if you watch the ABs, he just doesn't look like himself totally. He's putting the ball on the ground more. I still think this is a guy that's really trying to get back to feeling like himself. Let him do that before you just throw him to the wolves. And I think, potentially put him in a spot where he could get hurt, or put him in a spot where, it could affect his confidence and development. And then, okay, great, you're in the postseason now. What do you do with him? So I think a couple more weeks, even just 10 more games, could go a long way for Dominguez in AAA, and then revisit it then.
So there is a guy that is up in the big leagues now, not really in a postseason chase whatsoever, but the whole development, get your feet wet at the AAA level thing was just entirely bypassed for Rhett Lowder of the
Yeah.
Cincinnati Reds. And Rhett Lowder is now a big leaguer. It was a very encouraging first start for Lowder. I think he was nervous just watching it back. Like, he walked 4. That's not who Lowder is. I'm looking at an 18-year-old playing in the SCBL. That's a college summer league for Carolina Venom. I'm trying to pull this up. The Southern Collegiate Baseball League that has like the Carolina Vipers and the Concord Athletics and shit like that. This guy, when he was 18 years old, facing college kids before his freshman year at Wake, 19 and a third, 2 walks, 20 Ks. So he's always been a strike thrower, always. Walking 4 in 4 innings in his big league debut, I did not think was going to happen. But he allowed just 2 hits and 1 run. He K'd 6. Lowder looked pretty good. He was fighting himself, but he looked overall good in his major league debut. This comes after a AAA debut the week prior, where he went 6 shutout, 3 hits, 7 Ks, and no walks. He had an acclimation process in Chattanooga. He didn't have it in 1 start in Louisville, and he's going to settle in. Now,
Yeah.
the Reds have been going through this weird thing where they are just grabbing guys and DFAing them a day after they pitch. Like, they are looking for warm bodies up there. I thought it would have been crazy because he threw in game 2 of a doubleheader. I thought it would have been crazy if he was selected as the 27th man for a doubleheader and then just sent right back down. That's not the case. Lowder is going to be up there for good now. What did you make of his major league debut?
Well, I'm glad you mentioned the walks because that was surprising, and that just seemed like classic nibbling situation there. Just not trusting the stuff fully, and I think there was points in Double A where he saw he just wasn't fully trusting his stuff. The last time he walked four or more batters was May 27th, 2022, at the University of Miami. Um,
Sophomore year at Wake.
yeah, sophomore year at Wake, and including college. So that was his first professional start walking more than three, including college. He only did it four times in college. So I'm not very worried about that. That's just a classic. Hey, I'm a pitch to contact guy. Yes, he's going to get his whiffs, but I'm a pitch to contact guy for the most part. And maybe I just need to see some weak contact before I can fully have that confidence of being able to attack the zone a bit more. He was attacking with the sinker and the slider. It just seemed like the four seamer, he just was either just didn't have the feel for it or wasn't fully trusting it. I think it was a little bit of just not totally having the feel for it. When you're throwing two different fastballs and slider and the changeup feel wasn't totally there either. But you saw the sinker and the slider. And this is why I love Rhett Lowder. And we talked about him out of the draft for this exact reason. There's different iterations of Rhett Lowder. And the best Rhett Lowder is the one that has all four pitches, that's locating them all, and will look like a number two starter. Yeah. But the fact that, okay, four seamer's not there today, I can go sinker, slider, and mix in a changeup a little bit and get ground balls. Oh, the changeup's not there either. Okay, I can still locate my sinker and slider and then buzz enough four seamers at the top to massage my way through lineups. Oh, the sinker's not there today. Okay, I can go more four seamer, slider, changeup. Like the fact that he has these two variations of his heater that he is generally very confident with and can attack, hitters different ways, and also his slider or changeup will play up well off of that. I thought this was an example of just how Rhett Lowder can survive even when he doesn't have his best stuff, right? Like in a hitter's park in Milwaukee, whether it was home or on the road in that matchup, it was going to be, a hitter friendly environment to be able to hold the opponent a solid lineup in the Brewers to one run, even when he doesn't totally have his best stuff, still punch out six. Like, I think that's what makes Rhett Lowder such a good pitching prospect, isn't the fact that, he's going to be a frontline starter. It's the fact that even when he's off, he still has a chance to give you a decent start and give you a chance to win.
I agree with you. And I worry a little bit. Like, did you catch any of Zebby Matthews' start over the weekend against Toronto?
I did not.
He got annihilated. It was huge loss.
Yeah, 9 earned.
Yeah, like he got killed. I think Lowder and Zebby are different. They're both strike throwers. They're both zone pounders, but Zebby can be too much around the strike zone. I think Lowder
is talking about, right? Like when he got caught up, it's just that's the one thing. Great problem, but
great problem to have. But like, I mean, it sometimes looks like that, and you get ambushed by a team that's hot, and the Blue Jays are really freaking hot right now. So he ran into the wrong lineup to be two around the strike zone.
Yeah,
I'm not saying that Lowder should be walking four every time out, but like, notice he wasn't nervous and filling up the middle of the strike zone. And it's like, oh, well, if I do anything, I have to throw strikes. No, like he got away with 4 walks because none of his pitches were really left over the heart of the plate as meatballs. And it's like, hey, see how far you can hit this thing.
And he gets ground balls, right? Like, and that's the thing. It's like, I think slightly above average ground ball rate for Zebby, but like, you're going to see a Rhett Lowder hover in the mid 50s in that department,
and it's why we like Lodolo too, dude.
Exactly. Especially in that environment. So that's the other side that I think gives Lowder a higher floor, is that, okay, even in the days where you are around the zone maybe a little bit too much, okay, guys are going to roll over and kind of get themselves out. And I thought that was something that we really saw from Lowder more as he settled in. Is kind of being able to balance the, okay, this is when I want to go get whiffs, and this is when I want to pitch to contact and get more weak contacts. And I thought over his final 6 minor league starts, we saw him toe that line wonderfully, where he struck out 27% of batters. It's a solid clip, but you see a lot of pitching prospects in his conversation north of 30, but he also had a 63% ground ball rate. So when you're getting enough whiff and a ton of ground balls, you're going to have a lot of quality starts. And it's not a surprise that over that 6-game stretch between double and that one AAA start, he held opponents to a batting average of 154, and his ERA was 0.51, just 2 earned runs and 35 innings. So, I mean, clearly, I think he has started to lean into and figure out who he wants to be and how he can be successful.
That blend is beautiful, man. It's like strikeouts, ground balls, and lack of walks. That's the dream with pitching prospects. And I know his stuff is not as loud as other pitching prospects in the top 100. LOWD loud. But appreciate the laugh. That was a good sympathy laugh. But I mean, dude, like he's exactly what you want in terms of a four starter. At the very least, he's what you want
Yes.
when it comes to a four.
Yes.
And he can
Yep.
blossom into a three or a two.
Mm-hmm.
So we've got a guy here in Reid Detmers that has proven that he can be a three or a two at the major league level. And then when you hit the snag, they decide to send you to the PCL to get right.
Yeah.
When you
Classic get right spot.
Yeah, get right spot. Hey, go to Salt Lake, where Joe Adele famously hit 500 homers every fucking day for 4 years. Reid Detmers had a 5.5 ERA and 14 starts with Salt Lake. If you believe it, he threw 78 innings in Salt Lake and has thrown
Oh,
63 innings in the big leagues.
what a waste.
Are you kidding me? 78 innings. Think about how many bullets that you just wasted from a guy that, if I'm not mistaken, is hitting arbitration this year, this offseason.
I wonder how
Detmers.
those hearings go, right? Like, can you use that against him?
Oh
It's not
my.
his fault that I mean, I know he could have pitched better, but like no other team's doing that.
No
I'm
other
really
team is
interested to
doing
see
this.
how that goes in the hearings.
No other team is doing this. But Detmers is back. He is set to make his first start in the big league since June 1st. Oh my gosh. A summer in Salt Lake. Sure, it's nice. Sure, you got some fishing in, but come on, man. Go to LA. He joins a rotation with Caden Dana, with Samuel Aldegari. If Dana and Aldegari and Jack Kahanowitz were starting games and Reid Detmers was still in AAA, I'm like, I'm doing everything I possibly can to get out of that organization.
I mean, what is he going to work on in AAA that he can't work on at the big league level? And I understand, like, for teams that are competing, it's like, okay, well, we want him to work on that in a controlled environment. The PCL is anything but a controlled environment. You don't even know if some of the pitches that you're throwing are really working the way that you want, because the results off the bat can be so silly. And beyond that, like, if you're saying I want to put my best foot forward at the big league level and let Detmers work through this in the minors, you rushed Samuel out of Gary, who you just acquired at the deadline, who is a breakout pitching prospect who had barely thrown above the lower levels. Like, there's no rationale. There's nothing to follow there. But we've talked plenty about that. I do want to talk about that. Clearly, Detmers did find something. I think he could have found that at the big league level. But over his last 3 starts, did look to really settle in there. He went 8 innings of 1-run ball against Sacramento, at Sacramento, the future home of the A's. Speaking of just absolute lack
Divisional
of,
rivals.
of rationale and functioning. And then 7 innings of 1-run ball against Round Rock, and then 6 innings of 1-run ball against Sugarland. So final 3 starts in AAA. In the PCL, 21 innings of 1.29 ERA, 36% strikeout rate. So it looks really good. And I hope that he can now go to LA and not be pitching in such a ridiculous hitter-friendly environment and feel even more confident there. But yeah, I really am pulling for him to just finish the year strong, maybe up his trade value a little bit, and hopefully get out of there. We know that a lot of teams were calling about Detmers because a lot of teams know that he's a big league starter and a good one.
Good. Yeah.
So we'll see how the Angels handle him, but I'm glad he's back up. It was silly that he was there for that long and just made minimal sense. And clearly he just was pitching too well for them to be able to justify it anymore.
Kahanowitz, by the way, trivia, 32 and 2/3 innings so far. How many Ks for Jack Kahanowitz in his first
32 and 2/3.
32 and 2/3? How many Ks?
They go with like 16.
12.
Huh.
3.3 strikeouts per nine. We love that. He throws 96, 97. That shows you it's really hard to pitch in Major League Baseball.
How much characteristics matter.
Dude, it's crazy. I mean, I'm looking at 97 that looks like it's sinking on television. Then I see 12 punchouts and 32 and 2/3 innings. It is unbelievable. Let's jump to another guy in the American League West that is back in the starting rotation. The Rangers have Jack Leiter back in the fold. Leiter just made his 4th major league start, and Jack Leiter in his first 13 and a third innings, the book has been made clear. 13 and a third, 24 hits, 19 earned. He's K'd 11. But this Jack Leiter that's in the big leagues now is different than the Jack Leiter that was pillaged at the beginning of the year. He went back to AAA, he worked on stuff, and he got stupid electric. And we talked about that on the call-up. Like, that guy looked like Jack Leiter. As Kumar Rocker starts to look like Kumar Rocker, Jack Leiter is starting to look like Jack Leiter again. And they're getting that version up.
Yeah. I mean, first start I thought was solid. I know it's the White Sox, and I know the stat line wasn't perfect, but 4 innings, 2 earned. This defense didn't do him a ton of favors there. But what we saw him doing, when we talked about it a little bit, like in those 2 AAA starts, just, I mean, the fastball was sitting 98, 99, and with crazy life. He made a slight adjustment with his delivery that seems to have him working towards home much more comfortably. So he's filling up the zone more, and he's getting more ride. And when you're doing that at 97, 98, that's going to play. The other thing that I've really noticed with him is he's landing the curveball more. And he landed all 5 of his curveballs he threw in that start for a strike. The slider weirdly wasn't there for him as much, and that's a pitch that's almost always there for him. So the fact that he was able to survive, like in the past when he didn't have the slider, and it's gonna be something to watch because he's gonna need to have that. He's predominantly gonna be the 2 pitches. That's where you saw the 15 ERA, right? Like that's where it was bombs away because they're just gonna cheat for that fastball. But now the fastball is playing a little bit better, and he's got this curveball that he's finally landing for a strike that I really do think takes some pressure off the slider. And I thought that was an example where he wasn't locating the slider as well as he was in the previous couple minor league starts where he dominated and he still survived. Again, I get it was the White Sox, but it didn't really matter. We saw him struggle when he didn't have that, in AAA at points. So I'm really eager to see the next start, and he should be making it in the next couple days. And maybe there are some growing pains, but I'm just excited that he can now have that runway the rest of the year. Now that the Rangers are out of it, learn at the big league level and maybe not press as much, because what I saw from Jack and the PCL over the last couple starts was a totally different arm. And I know like a lot of the stuff plus models graded it out as different. Like it was different the way that it was coming out of his hand. And I think it's hard to argue against the swings and misses, the hitter reactions and things like that. So he's a guy that I'm of course I have the personal connection, but even that aside, I think very interesting storyline the rest of the way, because he does have a tangible adjustment here. He has looked really good and could have a spot in that rotation next year with Kumar Rocker. And then, the vets, Jacob deGrom looks great again in his rehab. Like they've got dudes over there. So it's going to be fun. And this is kind of like a 1-month audition, I think, for Leiter to really force himself into their plans for next year. Of course, they regard him highly and, still think that he's got all the potential, but it's okay. Potential. We'll see if you can earn it next year versus, hey, you're kind of penciled into our plans here. And I think a good 4 starts could at least have them loosely pencil him into their plans next year.
And it doubles the volume that he had in, he made 4 starts before September 1. And he's starting right after we record. So he is throwing on Monday. By the time you listen to this, he'll have his 5th major league start under his belt. But say he makes 4 more starts. That doubles the big league sample that you have to work with. And the first 4 were interrupted by several options. And it was a back and forth thing. Like he was recalled, made a start against the White Sox, 2 earned in 4 innings, then was optioned again, and then was brought back up to start on Tuesday. So there's always been like this layer of movement. I don't know if I'm up here for a day, for a week, for a month.
Defending champs, I get it.
Yeah, but like now that you have a little bit of stability, like maybe we see a comfortable Jack Leiter actually show who Jack Leiter is at the moment.
I hope so.
So consistency is awesome on that front. Speaking of consistency, how about a hitting streak for Coby Mayo? I want to talk about 2 mashers. It's now a 2-game hitting streak, back-to-back games. Only problem is they were separated by 2 weeks because he had to go back to AAA.
What do you think he learned?
I don't know. What do you think he learned in those 2 weeks? Sliders?
I have no idea.
That's the thing. Sliders, lefties, just something super vague that everybody works on all the time. Yeah, just worked on being myself. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, he was down there for 10 games and had a 783 OP or 789 OPS. All right, come on back up here. You're ready to go again.
You're good. Coby Mayo 1 for 2. He did punch out, but he scored a run on Sunday for Baltimore after he was one of the September call-ups. It's good to see Coby Mayo back in the big leagues. I know that he struggled in his first taste. His first taste was 7 games.
Yeah.
He's going to be fine. He's going to be just fine.
Special bat. And I think that the honest answer is probably defense. He's probably working on the defense for, intensively, maybe for a couple weeks there or close to 2 weeks. Mostly played third, got a couple starts at first, but I think that was probably the focus. This is a guy that we've continued to highlight, and I've said I think it could be a guy that puts them over the top, can be that Evan Carter type of jolt, and I still believe it. It wasn't going to take a handful of games like everybody has been struggling for me to like change my mind. And also, I love that you mentioned the 2-game hitting streak. His last game was his best game before they sent him back down, where he actually looked very comfortable. And then here he is back up again, and it was the second best game. So I think that's really encouraging. I know it was at Colorado and whatever, but his final game was at home against the Nationals. So we'll see. And if it's a part-time role, just for this year, that's fine. I mean, Arias has actually ended up playing really good defense at third, and that's been a fascinating aspect of it, and actually has been swinging it decent.
Yeah, he's
But
leveling up offensively.
yeah, he's really has been great. So maybe it's his part-time masher role. That's fine. I think it's just great. Mayo's played enough games this year. I think it's good for him to be up there. And even if it's sporadic ABs and they don't put him in a ton of spots for success, as a team that has World Series aspirations, and if he's part-time playing, still think he gives you more thump than most teams are going to get off the bench. God forbid somebody gets hurt, you can put him right in there. And obviously spot starts and things like that, he's going to be a great option. So I'm just glad he's up there, and I think it'll be valuable experience for him one way or another, more so than just continuing to mash in AAA, where I just don't think he's being tested much anymore compared to what he's already done now over quite a large sample size. So I'm eager to hear the role, but I think we're seeing at least he's going to play a little bit here, and I do think that he can give them some exciting power.
No doubt about that. Other AAA master that is up, 950 OPS in AAA, but we are 2.5 months removed from Kyle Manzardo's last big league action. His first game back in the big leagues as a September call-up for the Cleveland Guardians. Kyle Manzardo 2 for 3 with his first 2 MLB home runs. They both came against Mitch Keller. It was not a good Mitch Keller. Mitch Keller allowed, I think it was 11 hits in 5 1/3. Keller has really struggled since the All-Star break. But Manzardo taking Keller deep twice. That was I'm back, I'm more comfortable statement from him. And that's really important, man. He was the DH on Sunday. If he can fill that DH role and get on base at a 400 clip and OPS at the 900 clip that he did in AAA, that's a game changer. And I'm asking for a final month of that. I'm asking for that to carry over. Is that lofty? It's incredibly lofty. So say he gets on base at a 350 clip instead of the 260 that he was getting on base on in his first 30 major league games. And he OPS is 800 instead of the 620 OPS that he had in his first 30 major league games. His presence as a middle of the order power bat, I know immobile, I know, minimal defensive value with Naylor playing first base. Anything is a bonus when it comes to power adding to the Cleveland Guardians lineup. I think that this can be a serious positive presence for a team that needs serious positive presences in the middle of that lineup. It's awesome to have J-Ram. It's awesome to have John Kensey Noel. But give me more pop. Give me the threat of more homers.
Yeah, I mean, again, how many guys are you going to bring up that can give you a 2-homer game like that, against a Mitch Keller? Theoretically, anyone could do that, but you know what the point is there, and I'm with you. This is a dude that has been one of the more pure and consistent hitters with the power that he has added now in the minor leagues for several years since the Rays took him in the second round. He has consistently mashed. Oh no, another rookie who struggles for 87 plate appearances. It wasn't like he got his doors blown off either. It was a 571 OPS, but a 26% K rate. I thought there was some kind of bad batted ball luck mixed in there as well. And yeah, he could have walked more. There was some things, that of course anybody can improve on, but he was hitting the ball in the air pretty consistently. There was plenty of reason to give him more run. I understand that where the Guardians were at, they needed offense and he wasn't giving it, and they found another guy, and then he went to AAA and clearly just mashed, and then was putting up video game numbers before they brought him up. I mean, multi-hit games, home run, and then they bring him up, and he rides that wave and that hot streak into a great return to action here. But I'm with you. This is a difference maker if he is able to even tap into anything close to what he's capable of, because this is a guy that can hit 25 plus homers, that can hit for average, and has walked historically at a really strong clip. This is a difference maker in that lineup. And we always talk about how they can use the power. He can bring it now. And with his ability to elevate, get on base, and I think now having another 50, 80 plate appearances before the postseason, he'll have a good 150 plate appearances to be able to settle in now at the big league level. And I think he could play a big part in their success in the postseason.
And the numbers are going to look better with the larger sample. Manzardo is best enjoyed over the course of 2 months, over 3 months. It's not enjoyed over the course of a week. And, hey, the multi-homer game is awesome. And that's a hell of a 24 hours for Kyle Manzardo. That's a hell of a 2 hours for Kyle Manzardo. But I mean, his value over 3 months, it's like, oh, this guy's been walking this much and he's not punching this much. It's fascinating to see over that full sample. One more thing negative in the AL Central. Saw Drew Thorpe is having surgery to remove a bone spur from his right elbow. So Thorpe's season is done for the White Sox. The expectation is that there is no hindrance on his spring training in 2025, which is a good thing. Bone spurs are scary. Right elbow things are scary for right-handed pitchers. But it's good that they're getting this out of the way. Are you at all concerned? Do you ever get concerned when you hear loose body bone spur, you get that removed and you got to work your way back and your season's
Gen-
over?
Generally, like from guys I've talked to, it seems to be just more of just like the hindrance of the fact that they have to like go in there and get it out, like means
Okay.
that you're gonna just take some time to come back. I think the concern is sometimes those loose bodies, from what I understand, um, like can end up altering and like hurting your ligaments and things like that. So it's just important to get it out. And I think with Thorpe, he clearly wasn't feeling like himself. He was churning out good start after good start. And then, I think the 4 starts leading up to the final 2 before they put him on the shelf, 1.85 ERA. I mean, he was shutting down. Yes, it was the Rockies and the Marlins, but then the Twins and the Royals like kept him at bay, and quality starts against both of them. 6 shutty at Kansas City, which they like to hit there.
Right.
So then you have the Mariners and the Royals again, where he just really struggles, gives up 14 earned in those 2 starts. And I just don't think he was Drew Thorpe there. And it honestly makes me feel a little bit better that that was probably as a result of some discomfort. So I should be 100% good to go, like you said. And, you can start to see this White Sox rotation. We just talked about Noah Schultz and how he's exceeded even lofty expectations this year in Double-A and is even pushing past the, innings threshold that they kind of put up for him before the year.
Yeah.
And I think there's a lot of positive developments on the pitching side with the White Sox. And overall, I don't want the 14 earned that he gave up in the final 2 starts there to cloud what was, I think, a very positive year for a guy that had a very difficult year, that was traded twice, bounce around, and has to go make his debut for the biggest joke of an organization in sports right now. And you could say that's lower impact, but when you're going from the Padres, Yankees, and then you're going to the White Sox, it's a different beast. And I thought he was extremely impressive and professional and handled all that stuff really well. And I'm very excited to see what he's going to do next year. And I think he's proven already that he's a big league arm. And whether it's closer to a 4 or closer to a 2, I think it's going to be somewhere in the middle, maybe skewing a little bit closer to the 4.
Yeah.
I think he's proven that he's going to be a big league starter for a long time.
No doubt about it. And the 5.48 ERA is just so skewed. And I love that he's taking care of the thing that made that look as bad as it was, because it was not bad. I thought this was an A to A minus type season for Drew Thorpe in 2024. So very successful. That'll do it for the Just Baseball show. Hope you guys enjoyed your Labor Day and you're ready to hop back into the workforce if you're joining us on your morning commute. Be sure to rate and review. We have great stuff going out on justbaseball.com. And get your merch. I'm not wearing it because I hate the company. We will be back to talk to you tomorrow.